Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Camera Tuesday, we're going to talk about camera brands in 2023. So this is a more of an overview of what the hell is going on. So let's dive right deep into it. Now, the reason why you have to take a look at the brand that you are buying rather than just the camera that you yourself is purchasing is that you are never buying just a body. You are opting into an ecosystem, meaning if the ecosystem is bad but the body is good, you'll still be stuck with something that is bad. So you have to understand it. And there are many things other than the body that matters. And many will tell you flat out, those things matter, body is not the most important part. Like for example, lenses. You can buy an amazing body, but if it does not have the lens that is fast, light, agile, accurate and precise enough, yeah, lol, that's all you have. So lens matters. Battery. Now battery may not sound that big of a deal, but here's the deal. When you are dealing with a large lot of team and you are dealing with different models, it matters a lot, like a lot, like a really large amount of things. It's one of those things that more you use it, more frustrated you will get if it's not done well. Flashes. Again, many jobs require flashlights and they are like, expensive deal. So you have to be damn sure whether you are buying something and they are intercompatible or not. So flashes. Memory. This is a particular thing because which format of memory that you're using directly affects your workflow speed. So if you have good memory, fast speed, low cost, that's good. If you have something proprietary, something complicated, something useless, you will suffer from it. Apps. Now apps may not sound very important to old people, but it is very old people as in like anyone who is around my age, 30 to 40 age. But for young people, basically people who are becoming a photographer now, they are coming from an era of mobile phone. Consequence of that is they will hate all the camera, no matter which brand, they will hate all of it because it's just raw garbage. And apps is one of those things that they will expect it to use and work, and sometimes you need app because here's the many smartphones have GPS. Only few camera bodies have GPS, meaning if you need for your work, or like many people need that, like geotagging data is important for them, be it insurance, be it construction, they need that geotagging data. They will connect their app to their camera and voila, geotagging data. Most of the time it won't work, so for them it does matter. So that's one of those things that I'm just giving you a rough idea of it. Like there is a whole ecosystem that you have to look into it, account for it, then jump into the company. And nowadays, given the development of mobile phones, given the development of AI, development of new computer networks, and the fact that you have on board neural networks that are like good enough to process images, cheap camera and cheap lens flat out is no longer a good option. Meaning we are no longer in the days of Nikon D3100 where you're like you buy something that cheap and still expect something useful out of it. That's not gonna happen anymore. You would be shocked. You will be disappointed in your super expensive camera compared to a smartphone, and you're like, dude, what the hell I'm getting out of it? So it's one of those things that I would flat out, just out of my own experience, just out of everything I've seen, stay away from it unless you are professional. And in those scenarios, why the hell you are buying something that cheap? I get it if you may be buying like just as a training system, or maybe you are very trained and you need someone else's money. Having a camera is kind of easy to ask money. So if you are going there with a S23 Ultra, even if S23 Ultra gives you a better result, people will be like, bro, I'm not paying you. So it's one of those things, but be very mindful. Do not, you will be shocked how bad modern, basically low cost equipments are. So stay away from them. And one thing, as you get older, and specifically people coming from smartphone era, they have to realize one thing very clearly. Usability matters far more than the performance. For example, there is a reason why we have a saying, the best camera is the camera that you have. Meaning if I have my mobile phone, pull it out, take a photo, I have an event. If my DSLR is stuck in a basically refrigerator or almirah, the end. It's just something in closet. It's useless. So it's one of those things that you have to understand. Performance means nothing. Flat out, will a DSLR give a better result than majority of smartphone? Absolutely. But will it be as easy to use? No. So what is the consequence? You want to put it in a almirah, nothing more. So why the hell that is? Because of lack of poor usability. Meaning till 2018 and as late as like 2020, you still could have bought a DSLR that does not had USB charging. As a matter of fact, many still don't. Like USB charging is not a fixed thing. And not to mention, even though you are using lithium ion chemistry in basically camera batteries, and those have C rating of 1C, meaning they can easily charge from 0 to 100% in 1 hour without degradation. So let's give it 1 hour 15 minutes or 1 hour 30 minutes from absolute zero to full charge, no degradation. They still take 3 to 4 hours to charge. That's the whole thing. Usability matters far more than the performance. If I give you a camera that is not the latest and greatest, but damn easy to use, you're gonna use it. Versus something, this is amazingly amazing, but you will pull out your hair if you are trying to use it, you're gonna throw it away. And trust me, look around you. You would have find people that like in the early 2010 era of like, IT explosion, everybody is just buying DSLRs left and right. They're like, yeah, I bought it, then I never used it. That's the one thing. Usability matters far more than the performance. And all camera sucks in that regard. Let me be very clear. All camera, be it Sony, Nikon, Panasonic, Fujifilm, all of them. It's like, dude, who the hell designed them? Like literally, did anybody after 1990 even try to redesign them? It's like, hey, we have new technologies. Like, I'm not even joking. Sony released multiple mirrorless cameras with touch screen, and all you could have done in the touch screen is just touch for focus. They did not realize that, you have touch screen. How about you touch the menu? They could not do it. Not even joking. Like, and that same time, like this, my Canon A800D old camera had that. It's like, who the hell? That's the whole thing you have to understand. And same, again, I'm saying Canon had it, but here's the deal. Even Canon's own menu, you will be like, dude, who the hell designed it? So it's one of those things that ecosystem matters. So let's have a look at Panasonic. So Panasonic was never the grand daddy. It was never the big daddy, but it had a presence. It had a map. It had some presence that got smaller. So basically, they were small. Now they are even smaller. Why the heck that happened? Well, they placed some bets on some technology, and it always backfired. It always malfunctioned. For example, there was a bet on contrast autofocus. Why is that? Well, you have to understand, when they released mirrorless cameras from micro four thirds sensor size, it did not have the mirror. That's why it's mirrorless. Now, here's the deal. DSLR mirrors are not just a mirror that you see. Mirror also helps the autofocus. And I'm like, what? That's why when you look into especially old DSLRs, it's very easy to find that it's like if you go into live view, the focus is horrible. Why? That's the reason. Because again, there is an independent sensor, phase detect physical sensor. It's not completely separate from your imaging sensor. That sensor's job is to focus on something, and it does amazingly well. But again, it's a physically different thing. That's why you needed the mirror system going khatang, khatang, khatang. Basically, at one time, it's saying the better autofocus algorithm is like, dude, use your data, read the data, focus on something. Then the moment your focus locks it, it exposes the sensor, the end. Now, when they went into mirrorless system, problem was that phase technology needed to be integrated with the imaging sensor. Like on the same plane, it had to be integrated. Now, can it be done? Yes. Can it be done cheaply? No. Can it be done when they wanted to do it as early as like, I think 2009 or something? Yeah, no. So consequence of that, they had to jump into some other technology. They jumped into contrast detect. Now, it was there in many DSLRs and all that jazz, but it was horribly unusable. Like, it was just bad. Now, benefit, it does eventually locks onto something if you have good algorithm, but it's always hunting and really, really bad for videos. But they jumped into it because, again, their another assumption was that sensors will always be expensive. That also backfired. Sensor is now the cheapest thing in a camera. Like right now, if you look into a modern camera, they're like, oh, sensor must be expensive. No. The processor, the SoC, system on chip that goes into these puppies, those are expensive. Like very, very expensive. That's why back in the day when GH5 was all the norm, it had literally the same price as Sony A7 III. Even though A7 III had 2x the surface area in the sensor wise. That's the whole point. It's the processor that consumes the most amount of money at this point in time. And if you do not use the latest and greatest node, let's say if you are using 150 nanometer and somebody is using 75 nanometer will be far more energy efficient. It will not overheat, and your competitor will have a better product. So that gamble on tiny sensors backfired because it's like, that forced them to use something that was not ready at that point in time, contrast detect, then forced them into a sensor technology that did not go anywhere. Consequence, that died out. So they made a jump into basically full frame, and they pooped the bed. That was the time where they should have been like, okay, enough research and development has been done into integrating both the sensor and the phase shift array technology in the sensor itself, which, mind you, at this point in time, Canon, Nikon, Sony all does that. So it's a common thing now. You can just pick up your phone and call On Semiconductor. It's like, hey bro, give me one. It's like they're gonna give it to you. That's how easy it was. But they're like, what if we still make stupid decisions? They made stupid decision. The release of full frame was met with like, it's not bad but not great. That was the enthusiasm, and consequence, sales figure was just not amazing, flat out not amazing sales figure. But they made a lot of hype in January 2023, very recently, and the primary reason was that finally somebody bitch slapped them and is like, bro, put the goddamn phase detect algorithm, and they put it. and it was very good. And like, is it as good as all the Nikon and Canon and Sony? Is it same level as Nikon? More or less, yes. Is it same level as Canon? No. Is it same level as Sony? Hell no. Because again, this is Mark 1 product. It takes multiple generations to refine it. Like Sony had 8-year head start compared to everybody else. And even then it took them time. So of course, this is never gonna be as amazing as Sony's, but good enough. Like at this point in time, it's a good start. But this should have been their first entrance. This is what should have been like, this is how we are jumping into full frame. They messed that part up. And consequence of it, even though they have low sales, somehow, somewhere they have a law that is like, we have to release multiple models. Like they are releasing GS6, I think, and then they're like, we are also going to release this model, which is GS6 with some extra butter masala. It's like, why? And even in this, like this personally boils my blood. It's like, bro, you do not have enough money. You are not making enough money. You're not selling enough units. And this is from you. This is from your stock reports that you are releasing at the end of every year. And you are like, I'm going to release S5 Mark II. Good. I'm going to release S5 Mark II X. What? Like, why do you have these two models? And the price difference is $200, $250. That's tiny difference. So what have you changed? Nothing. Like I can guarantee you, if I were rich enough, I would have bought these two things, opened it up, and I can guarantee you all their PCBs would be same. All their processor would be same, because that price difference is too tiny. The chassis is too basically similar for, oh, they have changed this. Maybe, little bit here and there. 99% of the specs are matching, so that means they are same. The only difference is the firmware. So this puppy is better version and they are not releasing it. Meaning anybody who's buying this, basically S5 Mark II, will be pissed the moment this puppy comes out. S5 Mark X. Why? Again, somebody smoked weed and they're like, we shall release 2 models every time. It's like, you are not selling enough, release 1. And again, that will also force them to reduce cost. They were like, bro, instead of having 2 inventories, we have 1 inventory. Saves money. Either pass on that savings to the customer or keep that savings to yourself as increased profit. Do not release these 2. It's like, this has the amazing ability to do USB recording, and trust me, if you're doing video regularly, that's like, shut up and take my money, because SD cards wear down. I'm gonna be on my 3rd SD card. Basically, I will be buying 4th new SD card, because this card also is about to like reaching its end of life. It's now showing like, slow write error and all that. It happens again. I'm recording 2 times a day, every day for years on end. So card does goes down. Here's the deal. Even a basic SSD is like, bro, I got this. It can do that for 10 years and it will still not be spent. But SD card is super expensive. So having USB-C direct recording was like, shut up and take my money. Better formats, better everything. But they're like, what if we release this one and you had to wait for June to buy this one? So I have zero hope for Panasonic to ever make any recovery, simply because every time, every model, they are like, we're going to release a garbage one and then we're going to release a better one. It's like, how about you don't make the garbage one? How about that? How about you don't make it? How about either you save up your money, save your profit, or pass it on to the customer? How about that? So that's why, like, and that's truly tragic, because Panasonic does make some very good user interface cameras, meaning their user interface is like, I see what they are trying to do. It's actually useful. So it does hurt. It does hurt. Like, this stupidity is like, it's not gonna go. Then we come to Fujifilm. Now, Fujifilm was very unique early days, is simply because back in the day we had Nikon and Canon. They were the 2 daddies and they were expensive. Basically, if you wanted truly good performance, you had to go to their full frame and you truly had to go into their flagships, quote unquote. But that was idiotically expensive. So Fujifilm comes along, it's like, I'm going to only focus on APS-C. Again, APS-C being already manufactured by other semiconductor manufacturers. So the price was right. And they're like, we're going to only focus on it. We're not going to create a conflict of interest where they're like, we can't really charge too much for our camera, because again, if we charge too much, people are like, dude, I'm going to buy a full frame rather than APS-C. So there was like always a limitation in APS-C. They're like, don't worry about it. We only focus on APS-C. That did work to some extent, and in early days it was really good, but nowadays they have switched focus to medium format. Now be mindful, there is no such thing as medium format. What medium format simply says is basically you are above a full frame 35mm and below 1 foot. That's why if you look at GFX, and this looks big, if you put Hasselblad, you will find the sensor is much bigger on Hasselblad. There is another brand, Phase 1, I think, that has even bigger sensor, and all 3 are called medium format. Medium format is a zone, basically above a full frame and below 1 foot sensor. So medium format, they are jumping into GFX, and the reason with GFX is like even if they are selling few units, the profit margin on each unit is exponentially higher, meaning selling one of this is equivalent to selling 50 or 60 of like tiny ones. So from their point of view, they're like just focusing on this nowadays. And back in the day when they started, they had a very good cost advantage, meaning you wanted a good camera, good reliable camera that was digital, that was actually good, actually easy to use, and had fun color options and all that. Fuji was really good. However, they are no longer cost competitive, meaning you are paying almost same amount of money as you're gonna pay for Sony, Nikon or Canon. So that created an issue where the cost is no longer justified. And their performance was never the greatest. Meaning, were there good performance? Yes. Were there, whoa, no. Flat out no. Like, no. Just no. Why not? Well, the Mark 1 lenses that they released, those lenses were more designed for efficiency, more of a Leica lens kind of algorithm. So they were very sloppy. Meaning, even if you put an amazing algorithm in your camera body, put amazing electrical system that you can drive the lenses at very high speed, the lenses itself was the weak link. Meaning, even if algorithm is like, bro, I got this, that's where I need to focus, motor move 5 units forward, the lens would be like, bro, relax, man. Take some chill pill, man. You're young, man. Chill. And the autofocus is like, finally I reached there. So even though everything else was like very snappy, very fast, the lens was holding back. And now they are releasing the new generation of lenses, which is good. Now the price is exponentially higher, and they are not selling the same volume and units as other companies. So the cost is also not very comfortable. So you may be paying almost same price or maybe even higher than a full frame telephoto lens. You're like, might as well buy that. So the limiting factor of their APS-C ecosystem is not amazing anymore. They are more focused on GFX at this point in time. And again, I do get it. Like, heck, if I were running the company, I will also focus on that. It's like one GFX is equivalent to multiple X series cameras. So they're like, why else focus on that? So the ecosystem is very limiting. So be mindful of that. It's not a bad, but it's not a great. It's like not bad, not great, but expensive. Then we come to the Nikon. Now, Nikon was a giant. It's a 1 century old company. Now, be mindful. If you're not familiar with Nikon and Canon, they are big deals. It's not because of the camera. Camera was like, that's how they started. But both of them were a granddaddy of semiconductor technology. Yes, they have not jumped into ultraviolet, extreme ultraviolet, same as ASML. But be mindful, majority of sensors, basically, memory controllers are still made on lower nodes. Basically, if you're building a Raspberry Pi or you're building something that goes into a refrigerator, Internet of Things, you're not going to use 5 nanometer. You're going to be like, bro, 150 nanometer, 200 nanometers, 75 nanometers. Those things Nikon and Canons were awesome at. So they were giant. At that point in time, they were giant, flat out, Japanese technology, giant, no competition. But at this point in time, Nikon is slow and old. It no longer has that whoa. Nothing, like flat out nothing. So, and their sales figures are bad. Like whether you like Nikon or does not like it, does not matter. Look at their sales figure year over year. It's not good. Like they went from, we are the granddaddy to, okay, Canon does beat us, to like, okay, Sony is also beating us. Okay, we are really not selling. Okay, we are really not selling. Okay, now we are shutting down one factory. Okay, we are reducing capacity here. Okay, we are shutting down the service centers here. Like, it's not good. It's not healthy. Flat out, worldwide. That's why I want to be clear. Sales volume, meaning how many new people are jumping into Nikon ecosystem, it's not great. And the reason for that is like Z series was a fresh start for them. They made many mistakes, exactly like how Panasonic did. They had a lot of mistakes. They had a lot of good things also. That's why they were so big, but they also had some mistakes. So Z was like fresh. Let's start fresh. The entry they made was not amazing. Like they were charging same as a full frame professional camera, which had dual card slot, and they were selling 1 card slot. Why? And you're like, it does not matter. No, it matters. It matters. That's why 800D, Canon 800D has dual card slot. That's why almost all professional Nikon series DSLRs have dual card slot. It matters to those people. In those sort of time, you're gonna say like, bro, we're gonna charge you same amount of money in terms of dollars, but we're gonna remove that functionality. It's gonna piss off people. And it did. So their entrance was very weak, and not to mention, because Nikon was never serious about video, they're still not that great. So they have one flagship that is truly good, but this is goddamn flagship, and I'm pretty sure they put everything plus the kitchen sink into it to make it that good. It's like it's overdriven. Basically, the processor is brute forcing the dumb hardware. It's like, bro, you gotta do it. So nothing at this point in time is as amazing as their lawsuit with Red. Now you have to understand, Red is a bad company at this point in time. They somehow tricked a patent office into granting a patent on the idea that you can have compressed raw files in body, not the algorithm of the raw itself, the idea itself that you can record raw that is compressed somehow. I have no idea. Please do not ask me. Somehow Red, and every company hates it. Be it Nikon, be it Canon, be it Sony. They actually fought with Sony, and Sony lost. They fought with other brands also. They lost. And at this point in time, Nikon released this puppy which had compressed RAW, and they're like, oh, you have to update the firmware to disable that function because again, illegal function now. So there is a lawsuit going on now. Most companies that have tried to fight against Red have lost, but I hope for the sake of the development of everybody that they lose. And they actually went against small company like Kfinity. So I know for a fact that this company no longer has any good technology left. It's like sometimes you notice like they had good technology, they're so amazing, but they ran out, meaning they no longer have like WoW left. So they are like just blocking everybody else. Like RE bypasses this, if I'm not mistaken, is just they are just storing raw files. They're like, dude, we don't have even video. You'll open their file, it's just like one still. So 60 FPS is like 60 stills. So that's there. And again, the reason why Nikon thinks they can win is that you bought the algorithm from a different brand. I think Tikto has there's brand they brought it from, and that brand has patent on it. So how the heck two patents can fight? So let's see what happens. This is the most popular thing about Nikon at this point in time, and I genuinely, from bottom of my heart, I do want Nikon to win, because it will unlock everybody, and not to mention it will also push Nikon into the forefront, which it needs to be, because they need something big. Like flat out, they need something big, not Noct kind of big. And again, Noct should have had autofocus. Then it would have been like, damn, like it would have created a sensation around it. Like, bro, their autofocus is like so good. It can focus on like, you know, f8, like f0.8. But they did not. That was just dumb. That was just raw dumb. But it is what it is. So Nikon does need something big. Otherwise, they're slowly, they're like, that's why I specified, their sales volumes are not good. They're really reaching for the, you know, bottom of the barrel. Then we come to the Canon. Now, Canon was a giant and it got even bigger. Now, Canon, compared to all other companies, Canon literally have somebody or some crystal globe that they, you know, take their turns, and most of their turns hit out right, meaning they reached very early on, and I'm talking negative era, basically they have film format era. They tried to go what we call drive-by-wire. Yes, back in the day they went to drive-by-wire, and the idea was all their EF lens, not RF, EF lens will be drive-by-wire, meaning you design the lens and the engineer that is building the lens will decide where the heck you want to put everything, meaning where do you want the aperture iris, you want to put it front, put it in front. You want to put it closer to the sensor, put it closer to the sensor. Where do you want the autofocus motor? You want it here. Everything drive-by-wire, meaning you're gonna have a certain amount of energy allocated, meaning few milliwatts, and you have to figure out everything. But the lens design was very independent, and they nailed it, meaning they got awesome performance. This was the first time where Nikon genuinely could not compete with this. And be mindful, if you looked at any Nikon lenses, you find a lever in the back. And I'm talking DSLR lenses, the lever is controlling the aperture. It's what we call drive mechanically. It's mechanically driven. Canon dumped that technology very early on, and it yielded them amazing rewards. Their autofocus, that's why I said when you are comparing that to Fuji, why the heck Fuji had so hard time? Again, they were not completely, like they did not learn the right lesson from Canon's system basically. Canon took that risk, knocked it out of the park day one. Second, they jumped into videography world very early on, and they took it very seriously, like very seriously. And that again, be as early as Canon 5D Mark III, the fact that they were doing DSLR full frame with full great quality video, where people first time, it was like shallow depth of field on a video, on a DSLR, people were like, whoa. They really took videos very seriously, and they created a whole lineup known as C-series lineup. So all these, like, you know, gambles, all of them paid off. So that's why they went from a small company to big company to daddy company, to even bigger daddy. So flat out at this point in time, if you're buying the latest and greatest, you're going to get very good reliable tool set for photos and videos. No questions asked. Under no circumstances anybody is going to say the tool set is flawed. It's like, it's good. But their greed is getting bit out of hand, meaning I think at some point they kind of realize that we can do whatever they want, and what they have started to do is just horrible. For example, they literally, like in my camera, they have mini HDMI. Everybody is going to full size HDMI because again it clears less e-waste, gives better user experience, everybody wins. It's cheaper also, by the way. So what Canon did is like, mine has mini, not great, but okay. They went to micro HDMI. Everybody is going to full size. They are like, what if we created e-waste, we have multiple planets to ruin, so how about we ruin this one? Micro HDMI. Yeah. I had better one. Their latest one has uglier one. And you might be tiny things. No, in huge body, the bodies that are this huge, they still have micro HDMI. It's like, why? Like, for example, European Union had a law of 30-minute recording limit. Like my camera has that. Again, no problem. When they built the camera, there was law. I kind of get it. But European Union removed that law. The moment European Union did that, Sony released whole ecosystem where everybody had a 30+ minute recording, meaning if camera overheats, that's on you, but there won't be an artificial limit. Awesome. Like, you can go to as cheap as Sony a6100 and you still would not have to worry about it. Like, if there was no Sony, I can guarantee you Canon would have never removed that limit. Their idea was that our $2,000 camera is going to destroy our $20,000 camera, because that reason you have to buy $20,000 camera is just that you can record to 31 minutes. It's like, what the hell? That's why I said, like, many times the greed is getting out of it. Like, they should have been overjoyed. It's like, bro, we can finally make good video cameras at low cost. It's like, no, we're gonna lock 30 limits. It's like, and here's the they were very serious about video. So all their DSLRs, as soon as they added video function, they added what we call all eye, meaning every frame, like you take a video file, it's just frames, right? So each frame will be stored. Awesome. You want this. Again, it consequence with the video file is huge, but it's super easy to edit, because when you put in your timeline, every slice is of data. When you have like a, let's say, compressed format, where you have interoperative frame, basically you will have 2 keyframes and then projection frames. So projection frame have to be rendered. You'd never want to do video editing on that. It's really painful to do. So they had all eye. And I'm talking like back in the days of Canon 5D Mark III. Mine has that. Like, that's how old that function is. Now they are removing that in newer models, meaning Canon 6D Mark II, R6 Mark II, it does not have that. Like, you have to read the pamphlet and specifically read into the manual, and it's like, wait a minute, why the heck all eye is missing? Like, Mark I had all eye. Like, R6 Mark I had all eye. R6 Mark II no longer have all eye. They are removing functions which they had made standard for like freaking 10 years. They're like, what if we F the customer, What if we F the customer? Tiny micro ports, removing useful functions. Like, it's useful. That's why they added it. But they're like, what if we remove it, Awesome. And I'm not going to even talk about their battery madness. Let's not even go there. So their greed is getting out of hand. And then they released a final law for their RF series. It's like, no one shall make third-party RF lenses. Flat out. Nope. None. Nothing. Even though many people start in photography and they always start with third-party, Canon is like, no. Like, I have a Sigma lens and Canon is like, no. You buy a goddamn RF lens or buy an adapter and put some ancient lens. Why? Like, that is such an unnecessary block. I get it. Like, if they were blocking, image stabilization, they blocked autofocus. It's like, bro, that's just mean. That's just mean. That's just unnecessarily mean. So, flat out. That's why I said the greed is getting bit out of hand. So what does it all mean? At this point in time, they have a good ecosystem. I cannot deny that. Again, because of their size. But the grid is very expensive. Like, it's gonna hurt you, kind of expensive. Again, be tiny ports. Again, use it 2-3 times. You'll be like, I get it. Why people hate it so much. So it's one of those things. It's like, we used to give better camera. Now we have to give you garbage camera. It's like, why? So it's one of those things that as time gets progressive, the worst products we get. So that's from Canon. So let's talk about the final company, that is Sony. Now, Sony is the company that jumped into mirrorless bandwagon very early on, and they used their semiconductor development technology to actually integrate phase shift, phase focus array into the sensor itself. So sensor was not relying on contrast detect, and it yielded result. Benefit at this point in time, if you are buying a modern flagship Sony system, the autofocus will be flat out unmatched by any brand in any scenario. Like, it's not even a competition. It's like, you go low light enough, Canon is like, bro, I can't take care of you. And you can notice that, like, unless you buy very cheap, like A7C kind of cheap, most of the time you will be like, Sony's autofocus is like, shut up and take my money. It's damn good. So their focus is the focus system. If you are having issue with Sony, you could have defective product, or there is a good chance something is broken. So That's the one thing that's like truly good focus. Now, what about their lenses? Again, they no longer have they never had the experience of 1 century of going multiple lens iterations. So their lenses, Mark 1 lenses, was garbage, flat out garbage. G Master Mark 1 lenses, all garbage. But they learned. They made Mark 2, and their Mark 2s are so damn good, especially for their 24 to 70. 24 to 70 or something like that, Holy Trinity first lens, f2.8. It literally bitch slaps RF lenses. That's how good it is. It's like damn, and it's light also, expensive as hell, but good and lightweight. So people, for many professionals, it's like shut up and take my money. So Sony went from garbage to damn good in just 2 jumps. So really good top quality lenses in their first party ecosystem. So that's good. On top of that, because they were jumping into such a completely crowded industry, they knew for a fact if they do not have lens support, they're gonna die out. So they literally partially opened their lens mount. Basically, E-mount has a E-mount alliance kind of scenario where other companies can make lenses as long as they are not trying to get image stabilization data from the sensor, basically from the camera body. So other than image stabilization, everything else is fully unlocked. So if Sigma, Tamron, Voigtlander, whatever have you want to make autofocus lens, they're like, shut up and take my money. You can build it, no issue. So what does that mean? That simply means if you want to buy Holy Trinity lenses, you can buy them from 3 companies: Sony, Sigma, and Tamron. Tamron is the cheapest. Again, performance is not bad, but it's not like whoa. Then you can go to Sigma, it's like good. Then you get to Sony. Is it that much better than basically Sigma? No. Then what's the point? It's lighter, meaning you can carry it for this. Again, expensive, but you are paying for that lightness. And many people, I tell you, it's like shut up and take my money. So you have awesome option in terms of lenses, flat out awesome native lens options. You do not have to worry about it. That's awesome. Battery, then also they learned from as early as A7 Mark III. They were like Z100 is the battery, and that's the battery, meaning whichever model you buy after that is just gonna use Z100 battery, meaning you can have A7S3 Z100, you can have R9 Z100, you can have whatever have you is all gonna use one battery. That means if you have a crew, basically multiple photographers, multiple types of camera, all of them can interchange with each other. That's awesome. That's like for crew kind of system where it's like shut up and take my money. But Sony being Sony, and if you are familiar with Sony's history, Sony is one of those companies that is known to make a proprietary BS multiple times, and they made proprietary BS in this camera A7S3, and this BS is known as CFast Express Type A. Now, if you are old enough, you must have known like how SD card was a big deal. Then basically we had micro SD card going into your mobile phone. This is the time where Sony decided, because we are Sony, we're gonna create loose motion and we're gonna create this format. If you have never used or heard about this format, I do not blame you. But if you have an old Sony camera, it still may have this logo where it's like M2. I'm not even joking, Magic Gate, that's the name. And like they created their own for Cybershot mobile phone, micro. The micro is called M2. Yeah, they're garbage like that. So they have a history of creating. They also created Betamax and all that jazz. So flat out, they created a weird format. Now, ironic part is CFast Express, basically CFast Express Type B, that now everybody is using. Sony is using it in their video lineup. They're using it, basically Nikon is using it, Canon is using it, Panasonic is using it, Fuji is using it. Everybody is using this puppy. Now here's the who built this puppy? Sony built this. Now you're like, wait a minute, it says CFast Express. Here's the CFast Express. They made a CFast card before, but it was not successful, not very successful. Only few models ever used it. So they went to Sony. It's like, bro, we need something that is far more compact and faster than the SATA interface, meaning they could max get 500 Mbps. They knew future video formatted needs much more than that. So Sony was working on a format which you may have heard of, known as XQD. Nikon did a work with Sony to integrate XQD in their camera. So CFast Express Association went to Sony. Sony sold them their basically XQD format. So this looks like XQD. It is XQD. Literally, not only the physical format, the electrical wiring also. And the fact that both of them, basically XQD and this puppy, uses NVMe protocols. So this is literally Sony's Control-C, Control-V, make it into this, basically XQD with a stamp of CFast. So everybody is using it. Who is not using it? Sony. And what's the difference between this and this? Basically type B and type C. Type A, if you are familiar with PCI, you know that it has lanes, and you have 16 lane for your graphics card. You can have 4 lanes, you can have 2 lanes, you can have 1 lane. So type A is 1 lane, type B is 2 lane, and type C, that's supposed to be created like this big cards, supposed to be used for future video cameras, cinema camera, they will have type 4 lanes. So at this point in time, because Sony is using such a proprietary BS and nobody else is using it, supporting it, or even making cards for it, this is at the time of me making the video, 30,000 rupees, just focus on the number, 30,000 for 160 gigabyte, that's a odd system, and the read and write speed is 800 Mbps read and 700 Mbps write. Not horrible, compared to SD card is still good, but again the price is bonkers. Then compared to basically CFast Express, 22,000 if I have to pay. Basically instead of 30,000 I pay 22,000, I get 256, basically double the capacity almost. And here's the deal, because it's a 2-lane system, write speed is 1.7 Gbps 1.2 Gbps, and read speed is 1.7 Gbps. Oh, by the way, you may be like, okay, I'm comparing Sony to SanDisk. Sony's prices are more or less the same. So that's the whole ironic part. It's like, because of this stupid brain dead decision of some Sony executive who was like, I'm gonna make Magic 8, they made this garbage. Even though they have mold, they have everything needed for this, because they are the one building this, they're like, what if we F the customer? It's like, why? It truly hurts. Like, this truly hurts. Meaning, if they had this system, it would have been so more amazing, and again, at this point in time, you can't even buy 1 terabyte cards from Sony. You can buy 1 terabytes, basically a CFast Express Type B from Sony. So this is really frustrating, that, like, you know, painful and pointless card format, that does hurt. So if you are jumping into Sony, make sure that you are familiar and comfortable with the limitation that will be placed by UHS-2. If you can live with UHS-2 card slots, awesome. If not, then it's gonna hurt. Then we come to another aspect. In this regard, Panasonic and Fujifilm are amazing, is that when they released a model, they do not abandon it. It's like, oh, released, done, go home. Not only they do bug fixing, patches and all that, they improve it. They actively try their ass off to improve it. Meaning they're like, you bought it, 1 year, keep using it, keep upgrading, and you randomly, if somebody gave you the old firmware, you're like, bro, what a difference. And Sony is like, we have touchscreen, but we don't know how to use it. It's like, what the hell? They have never added any functionality. Once the model is released, it's the end. And the consequence of that is, like, they have such a weird line curve, meaning which model has the most advanced function? Right now, it's the cheapest one. If you buy Alpha 1, which is the most expensive one, it does not have all the features, all the bells and whistles. Like, why? The latest one has that. Now, you may be like, there are some things that require physical processor. I will grant you that. But other things, those are software things. Other things like, oh, touchscreen menu. That does not go back. That never is like, we have the hardware. What if we created it? It's like, no, we shall create the poo-poo and we shall sell the poo-poo. It's like, it's utter garbage. Like, once you buy the camera, that's it, the end. You will never get polished. Even though you'll be like, dude, you should be able to do this. You should be able to add this. But they were like, no, once the body leaves the factory, the end. They will never polish it. So it does create a messy scenario. So they have a lot of models and they have messy choices. But other things than that, other things than the stupid memory card format and the fact that they have weird models, if you find the right thing, the ecosystem wise is one of the best. And not to mention, lens matter far more than the body. You can deal with body's stupidities, but you can't deal with, oh, I can't buy the lens. So Sony at this point in time is really good, in the good direction. I just hope I can find the engineer and boom that engineer from existence who created this. It is like, you made this Type B, use the Type B. So this was my presentation on basically all the camera companies and all the camera brands and what the hell is happening with them in 2023. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.